Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. And today, at 1 p.m., on Lillian's interview, Lillian Caldwell is proud to interview Sara Troy of Self-Discovery Radio Network. Sara Troy is also a discoverer of SELF, which stands for Soul Empowerment Loving Fulfillment Program. So good afternoon, Sara. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me on your show.
I am delighted to have you. So what led you to become the discoverer of capital S period, capital E period, capital L period, capital F period?
The soul-empowered loving fulfillment? Well, I've been a spiritual coach pretty well all my life, but being kind of hard at it in the last 20-odd years. And I believe in soul awakening. I believe in listening from the soul to the heart, to the spirit, to what the mind needs to know. So put essentially understanding our knowingness. So, soul-empowered loving fulfillment is that loving fulfillment comes from the soul and empowering that message from the soul, stepping into it with heart in lovingness, and that fulfillment is knowing what you need to do at the time that you need to do it. So it's something pretty well been my calling all my life.
How does a person discover their soul? I mean, I've spoken to people, and quite frankly, says, I have no soul. And I said, of course you do. Everybody does. And I said, no, I don't believe in that garbage. I do not have a soul. So, but you're saying that's not true.
Oh, no, everybody has a soul. Of course they do. It's something they don't necessarily listen to because we're inclined to listen to outside in rather than inside out. And the soul is that connection to the heart. It's the voice that comes from within. You know when people say, I've got a gut feeling?
Yes.
How do you know? I don't know. I just know. Well, that's that knowingness we're talking about. That's that divine energy. No matter what God you worship, whether you worship a God or not, it's that divine energy that comes into you that gives you a sense of knowledge and understanding that then resonates with the heart, which is empowered. In that loving way, it's given then to the spirit, which is your action. And then your mind knows what it needs to know at the time it needs to know it in order to take that action. So it is that gut instinct. If people don't want to kind of call it a soul, call it the gut instinct.
It's something else. I know that some people, or several people, and I myself as included, have known about this ever since you're a child. And I think that children are more open to feeling that which comes from within them than comes from without them, because that's where they're, what I call their epic center of creativity.
100%. Children are born dreamers and inspired by so much around them, and they believe everything is possible and they can be everything. And then we send them to school, and then we start limiting them and telling them they have to conform and they can't do and they must obey. And we keep clipping those wings. If instead we actually look to what the gift is that they've been given and step into their wonderment and see the possibilities from their eyes, we would enable them to be what they were designed to be, because we all have a DNA signature. And we will probably have less psychiatrists in the world trying to help people find themselves later in life if we help them when they're young grow to be what they're meant to be.
Oh, in other words, do you think that maybe there should be like a manual of how to care and feed your inner soul or inner voice so that it will always be with you and you won't see it die or wither on the vine?
I think that really comes then to the parents and the community to keep that alive in a child. We have become so conditioned as humanity to follow somebody else's agenda, somebody else's pattern. And we are seeing a dysfunctional society on your own radio shows and on selfdiscoveryradio.com, the amount of people that have had to redirect in their lives because they're not living an honest, authentic self. They've lived a very conditioned life, an expectational life, and they realize that it doesn't fit them. It's not what they were called here to do. And whether it's been the kiss on the brow or the cosmic 2x4, they found their redirection to living their meaningful purpose. If we nurtured that when we were young, or if it was nurtured for us, we wouldn't have to go through all that kind of redirection.
And I agree with you on that. I know that halfway through my life, I started telling people, you know what, I am half empty. And they said, oh, no, you're half full. And I said, no, I am half empty. There's something missing, and I don't know what it is. But I know that I have to look within myself to find out what it is, because nobody else can fill that half of what's missing. You just can't go to the library. You can't go to a retail store and buy it. And you really just can't walk into any church or synagogue and sit down with the priest or minister or even the rabbi and say to them, I feel half empty. What's wrong with me? Because what they'll tell you is not what you really need.
You know, they will always speak about that connection. You're not connected to God. And again, this has got nothing to do with religion.
No.
What it has got to do with is connection. Yeah, that spiritual connection. It's to do with that divine energy. Every single person and thing on this planet and in space is particles. Everything can be mathematically equate. Everything has an energy signature. Everything has a DNA imprint. When we actually understand that, and science will back this up for the people who are skeptical, when we actually understand this and how intertwined we are, it's all about finding that energy signature that you're going to connect with, and step into that energy, that vibration, and that frequency, and step into what you are, again, here to design for. But we can all reach out at any time, anywhere. It's not up to the heavens. Nature speaks to you and fulfills you just as much because it was heavenly given.
And that is something that I think people need to understand, that there is a vast difference between religion and spirituality. Mm-hmm. That religion is something you practice, and that you have belief and faith in, which is different from spirituality, which opens you up to the realms of possibility. You're not hedged in, and you're given different roadmaps to follow should you decide to travel that, once you decide which one is best for your spiritual psyche. And a lot of people don't understand that.
No. You know, you're right. But religion is follow me, do as I tell you to do, or else hell is calling. Where spirituality is not something you practice, it's something you are. You are a spiritual being having a spiritual human collaborative existence. We very often detach ourselves from our matter, our body, and we don't know how to attach the spirit to the body. When we start seeing the spirit within every bit of us as a body, that energy that runs through the oxygen, the blood, where that energy is, we will actually understand that we are those spiritual beings, and we don't practice spirituality, we are of spirit.
And that's what seems to be lacking in general in this world. However, you've created a self-discovery radio network in which you invite guests from all over the world to discover more about themselves and what is really happening. So it will unite you and also guide you through their life. So how do you go about finding these guests, and what are some of the things that you look for in these guests before you bring them on and interview them?
Guests are finding me now, but sometimes it could be something as simple as somebody's posted something in LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, and it sparks my interest. But the common denominator, and I range anything from politics, spirituality, health, sexuality, life living, pretty well every eco-sustainability, music, relationships. Everything is in there, but the common denominator is how authentic are you? Have you taken the journey? Is this just something that you've learned and are now preaching, or is this something you have become and are now sharing? Are you an inspirer to invite other people to take their own journey? Are you a person that's contributing to humanity with your services, with your kindness, with your love? So it's the people that have taken that redirect, that have discovered the tools because of the journey they've taken, and now with that love of self and love of humanity are out there helping humanity find their own path and their own authenticity in life.
Do you often caution them that while they're sharing what they've done or what they have accomplished or what they want to share, that they have to be careful of how other people are going to take in their message? Because everybody hears something different, even though your guest or you yourself are saying the words. They're the same words that you're letting out into the world, but people perceive them differently.
We could have 10 people listening to a show, and each person is going to get something different out of it. I call my shows organic conversations. And yes, we're going to follow a particular interest, a particular topic, but we're going to let it flow as it needs to go. Nothing we put out there is intended for offense, and if it's taken an offense, that's generally because that's the place where that person is. I allow these things to be very energetic, very organic, and very true. If we were to go through everything cautiously, I think that would come across as not sincere. So I bring out of my guests things that maybe they haven't shared with others. But in sharing it, they show that courage, that strength, that truth. And they also show that how they've managed to overcome whatever trauma or pain that they've gone through in life and the way they're honoring themselves and their purpose now. So I'm very fluid with my shows, and obviously there is that level of respect, but I've never had anybody cross that line.
And that's good, because I know sometimes you get these people who email you afterwards and say, well, I did that, but I didn't get the same result. So
right.
And you kind of gasp at that because you're not quite sure what wrong turn they took. But people have funny ways of reinterpreting what they hear. And they also are they already have an agenda inside their head of how things should fall out. And when I receive emails like that, it makes me squirm because I know that what I and my guests intended was not the way it's being perceived or even fastened on.
No, I don't get those because I think maybe my audience is different. It's maturer. So, we're pretty well 30s plus.
Right.
And so it's people that are ready to hear. I'm not about, I have millions of followers. I'm on the philosophy that if we've changed one person's life, if one person's life has been affected positively and shifted in a direction that serves them, then that show served its purpose.
Right.
And I believe in the domino effect, because if that person has felt that way, they'll share that show, they'll talk about it, or in their own empowerment now, they'll go out and help others. So I look upon the shows many times as seeding and watering, and for those that are ready to grow it, they will. For those that are ready to pick it, they will. But for some, it just might be something that stays in the back of their mind until they're ready or they've had another shift in which to act on it. For me, it's like once it's out there, it's got its own energy and its own purpose. I give it blessings and off it goes.
Right.
I don't worry about it.
Oh, absolutely. I have done what I call sometimes a warning. If I really feel that people are going to take it the wrong way, I say you need to really come and listen to this show with an open mind and an open heart. And if you're not willing or ready to do that, then perhaps you need to go to a station and listen to the sports.
Right. I mean, I've done shows on bisexuality. I recently had a show on African-American Muslims and what they're going through. I don't shy away from topics, but it is the truth of the person. And I'm not going to agree with everybody. But that's the whole point of it is I'm hearing their story. I'm learning something from them. They're learning something from me. So the audience is learning something. And if you can't come to these shows with an open mind and you're coming with an agenda, then you're not going to benefit from it.
Absolutely. When you pre-screen and do a pre-interview with your guests, what kind of questions are you asking them?
I want to know how they came to be doing what they're doing now. Because obviously many of them are coaches, mentors or people, healers. And they've all got a journey, that's taken them there, that redirect, either heart awakening or soul awakening, purpose awakening. But I want to know, are they just out now just to advertise themselves, or are they wanting to really share who they really are and what they're really doing because they believe in what they're doing will help other people? Again, looking for that authenticity.
And it makes a difference because you, as a good interviewer, can hear the sincerity in their voice and how they are portraying what they have learned so that they can either pass it along or share it with other people.
Mhm. I mean, you do get those people that you pre-interview, and then when they're on air, suddenly they become something different.
Yes.
And I find people that do a lot of, yeah, or just take on a different personality. But I find that people who are big public speakers, they're used to a stage, they're used to getting up there and having the whole audience. That my shows are conversational, they're interactive. And those are harder shows to do because they have lost the art of interaction. It's statement and it's grandstanding. So, I just let them have the reins and just pull them back wherever I can and try and insert a different type of topic that maybe not something they're practiced in, and take them off on a different path to bring back that authenticity. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that's either a successful or a non-successful show. But it is interesting. When the lights, camera, so to speak, go on, how personalities can change.
And sometimes when they do very well in a pre-interview, that you get them on and they freeze.
Oh yes.
Everything is
yes. They become the yes knowers. Yes, no.
Yes. Kind of like
it's just
sitting in there trying to initiate a conversation and you're pulling at them, and it gets interesting that way as well because the audience is identified with their fear.
Right, exactly. So, it's up to us as hosts, to make them feel comfortable, and sometimes you sharing a story that they'll connect with helps them bring them out and share their story. And then once they get into the flow, they're there. I've interviewed children who are 10 years of age. They've blown me away with their articulation.
Oh,
I was expecting to kind of, they are just such beautiful, organic, free, honest speakers. There's so much to learn from the kids.
I think so. Now, on your sheet, it says you're a knowingness guider. What exactly is that?
Well, that is, like I said before, listening to the soul, the heart, to the spirit, to the mind. We're inclined to think our information instead of feel our information. And that knowingness comes from allowing our divine intellect, our heart intellect, our spirit intellect to have its input. It's not all about the mind or the brain. The brain is the CPU, the hard drive. The mind is the programming. And if we stay in our programming, we're constantly on a loop. Yes, but why? But what if we do it this way? But what if that? What if that? If we allow the soul, heart, and the conversation to come in, we are now more balanced in our knowingness, and then knowing what we need to know when we need to know it. So that's where that knowingness comes in, learning to listen from the inside out, and not from the head down, but from the soul up.
So if somebody came to you, for example, and says, I would like to learn how to reconnect with my inner soul and try to apply it to my business so I can grow it more as a spiritual journey to help other people, what are some of the things that you would say to that person?
My program is what I call a very basic fundamental program. It's first the understanding of self. What kind of personality are we? How do we perceive our information? Are we spirit-driven? Are we mind-driven, soul-driven? What are we driven? Also understanding where we are right now, because a lot of people don't pay attention to where they are right now. And many, many people don't realize that they're working on only one or two cylinders, that they're not, powering at all cylinders. When we understand who you are, where you are, now we can actually see the path that lays before you, a map of sorts for them to take. I can take them so far, but now I have got a wisdom orchard here of people and coaches that are that next level. The business coaches, the social media coaches, the branding coaches, everything you can think of, I've got there. So I'm there to open that door, because first and foremost, you need to know who you are, because that's how you're being represented to everyone else. You need to know where you are so you know where to springboard from. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing, because are you living a meaningful purpose, or are you just trying to make a living? When you've got that all in your bag, you're now ready for that next stage. And as I said, that next stage is I've got the people here on Self-Discovery Radio that are doing such wonderful work. And I wouldn't even attempt to do what they're doing, because that's their calling. So I'm that first step into self.
So where does focus come in? I have a lot of people telling me I lose my focus. I'm kind of like a crow. I see bright, shiny objects around me, and I have to tray and make sure it's not going to attack the nest. And then I come back. And that seems to be holding me back. Is that all part of knowing who you are and where you're going?
I think sometimes that's your creativity. Sometimes our minds wander and we get stimulated by what's around us, because it becomes that spark of something. It's the thing is to be aware. Now, I've been drawn to this. Is it because it's sparking an interest, or is it just redirecting my attention because I'm bored with what I'm doing right now? So kind of question it when you are over there. I'm looking at this bird. Is it because it inspires me? Is it being creative? Is it trying to tell me something? Because that's another thing I teach people to do, is recognize the signs in life, because they come in obscure ways. But also sometimes it could be just an indication of what you're doing is boring the hell out of you, and you need to refocus or change what you're doing into something that's more stimulating.
So you wouldn't really consider it a form of procrastination then?
No, I think it's if you're not engaged in what you're doing, then either it's the wrong thing or you're doing it in the wrong way because it hasn't engaged you. If you are being redirected, sometimes that is the message that's being sent to you, or the stimulation, or an indication that what you're doing is just not the right path.
Now that's very interesting, because I have a blog, and I have a lot of people who leave comments on the blog. And after I went out all the ones who think I'm just godlike with my blog responses, I come to a lot of people who actually have problems, and they're coming to me to see if I can help solve them. In fact, there's a program on cable. I don't know if you are aware of it. It's called Alexa, Please Fix My Life. And I often wonder why people would go to a total stranger to fix them when actually the real answer lies within them.
Yeah. But they need a guide. That's the point, is that people are so unable to turn their eyes in. And they need that reflection. That's kind of what I do with, the self-discovery, is help you understand how you tick, what's your mechanics, what's your DNA, how do you perceive life, how do you interact with life. Once you actually understand that, that's a tool that you've got in your kit. Now you know how easy it is to start listening from the inside out. But a lot of people go to other people and say, fix me. But all they want to do is be fixed on the outside. They're not paying attention to the mechanics on the inside. And if you're not willing to do the work, to invest the time, to nurture yourself, then you're not going to get anywhere. If you're looking for a downloadable app or a quick fix or someone with a Band-Aid, that's the only results you're going to get. You're going to always have to come back to be willing to work on yourself. And the more you work on the self, the more you liberate yourself, the better your life is, the more meaningful the purpose, and the more focus that's there.
That makes sense to me, but sometimes you do sort of wonder how the rest of the people are handling. You have put up your own radio network. Could you share with the audience, because I know that there are a lot of eager beakers out there that would love to put up their own internet radio station. Could you just explain in some short detail what it took for you to get your network up and running?
5 years of dedication of 6 to 8 hours a day to
Yes,
start off with.
24/7. Absolutely.
Exactly. You have to believe in why you're doing it. You've got to believe in the people that you're interviewing. You've got to be graceful and respectful, but you also have to show those boundaries in the parameters of how your shows are going to be dealt with. It is just as equal for the guest to be respectful of being interviewed and in the way that you interview and not be demanding, as it is for you to interview a guest and to respect their parameters. So it isn't about you and about making money. It's not about you and your glory. This is about something you are convicted to do because you have a message you want to get across, and you want to find those people that can expand that message, and in a respectful, graceful, and celebratory way, spotlight those people and what they're doing because they're serving humanity. But there's all the background work. Now, you can go to things like Blog Talk Radio where you just have people call in and it's instantly recorded. You can do live, you can do pre-recorded. But you've got to make sure that you have a blurb about the person and their links to who they are. There's nothing more frustrating than listening to someone and being inspired and then having no way to contact them or no way to look at their site. Make sure that you have a photograph of them. All of that takes work. That's all that admin on the outside. Then there's the branding, and then the marketing, and all the stuff of running a site. Now, if you're going to do it on your own, it's a learning task. And believe me, I've learned a great deal in doing this. If you can afford to have other people do it, great, and then you can delegate. But podcasting is a free enterprise. They get their money from donations or advertising. I'm looking at particular genre sponsorship where people can come and sponsor a particular genre because I have 9 shows up here right now. And if you're looking at it as it's going to be the big money maker of big advertising is coming in, that advertising will swallow up. It may not be the same message that you're delivering, and you can get lost in that shuffle. So please do it for the right reasons. It's got to be a calling. It's got to be a conviction. It's got to be because you love what the message of what people are doing, and you've got to be willing to put in the time.
And put in not only the time, but you really need to be dedicated to it.
Absolutely.
It's
a complete
live
commitment.
it, eat it, drink it.
Yeah.
I also run a network, and I agree with everything that Sara is saying. And it's not a business in a way that the traditional radio stations are a business. You have to separate the two and know what you're doing and know the laws of what's going on. So if you plan on putting in music, make sure you have permission to use that copyright. And there are different companies that you can contact that take care of all that, and you can pay them a monthly fee. Find out about the different types of licenses. Folks, when you do a podcast, the content is yours. The packaging is Sara's. You may not sell that podcast without cutting a percentage for Sara. Sara is your publisher. And you need to be aware of that.
Yes, and, we don't charge for our shows. It's, as I said, I have a donation box or subscription. So, people I interview will do whatever they want to donate. And I also believe that information should be free. So I don't charge anybody for listening to them because I think the more people that listen and that get enlightened, the better humanity is going to be. It's a kind of a responsibility of ours, isn't it, to show the hope in the world, what is actually being done to make this world a better place. We can't leave it up to the politicians. We can't leave it up to the corporations. We know they've become corrupt. We now have to step into responsibility in our own action and our own participation and be a part of the equation. And shows like that we do are just showing how many people are out there doing it already and who we can support and join and be a part of.
Absolutely. So when you decide you want to do something like Sara, the biggest compliment you can pay Sara is to give Sara a call or email her and say, I really love your programming. I want to start a network. Could you please share some of the trials and tribulations that I should be aware of? Because, folks, you are going to spend a lot of time putting it up. And any donations you receive, that is considered income. And you're going to pay taxes on it. So if you want to protect yourself, if you have a lawyer, don't do it through the internet. Go find yourself a competent lawyer and discuss with him or her what you need to know. In fact, the Small Business Administration has a pamphlet or a whole package of pamphlets telling you exactly what you need to know. And it's just not about incorporating as a company. You do not have to go that route, but they tell you how to protect yourself as a sole proprietor.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of what is governing your station in that state. And every state has its own rules and regulations. There's something called a common license that's floating around the internet. And that's like mailing yourself your story and saying it's copyrighted. It's a general thing. But if you want to protect yourself from somebody coming back and suing you for whatever the reason, you'll want to know how to protect yourself before it happens.
Yeah. A disclaimer is always good to have as well. These are the opinions and not subject to any recourse on the station. And, again, it comes to that mindfulness. As I said, we're very open and honest here, and we have some very in-depth, deep conversations. But as I said, I have an adult audience. And if we have people who are listening to it that aren't mature enough for that, well, they're really not going to come to me anyway. I'm not a 15-minuter. I'm an hour-long show. So it's for people that are truly hungry to know the information and aren't looking for a quick fix. So if they're going to listen for an hour, that means they really are earnest about hearing something that's going to serve them. So, I think I'm more of a specialty audience. I have all these wonderful answers for them to their questions that they haven't even asked themselves yet, but they've got to be willing to listen in order to learn from it. As I said, there's no downloadable app and no quick fix, is there?
In the old days, my son would bring home his friends, and he would charge them a quarter for a glass of milk and cookies. And then he would sit them down at the table and say, if you want to improve your life with your parents, listen to my mother. If you don't listen to her, you won't get the quarter back because you've already eaten the cookies and drank the milk.
Smart kid.
Smart kid. And yet the kid listened. And he would come back and say, I did exactly what you said. How did you know that? And I'll tell you, all adults or children want. And they all did what you did 30 years ago. Yeah. I mean, the scenery has changed. And we're a lot further along in years. It's now the 1970s instead of the 1960s. But our behavior remains the same.
Yes.
So
do our insecurities and everything else, right?
Exactly. And so I said, all you really need to do before you do anything is take a deep breath, count to 10, and think of your mother or your father doing this when they were your age.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said, and the rest will follow.
Right. Yes, I had an open house policy. Always had people there for the afternoon tea, for dinner. I also had kids that were having trouble at home. I was the safe haven.
Yes, me too.
And when we're working it out with the parents, they were safe with me, and so we always had extra kids in the house, and they felt comfortable enough to come and speak to me,
Yes.
because they weren't going to get the judgment, they weren't going to get the dictation, they were going to get let's hear it,
Yes.
and let's try and understand, and that's something I think we've forgotten. Again, going back to whether it's 15 minutes or an hour, we've got to be willing to listen. But not just listen, hear what's being said.
And there's a difference between listening and hearing. And most people don't understand that either. I tell them, I said, listen first and really hear what they're saying. If you have to take the word out of content and look at it, and then think about the options. It's always your choice. It'll be your
decision. That's the important thing to know. Yeah.
Look at the options.
Stuff's going to happen to you.
Yes.
And, some people go through some stuff that is horrific and never should happen to a human being. But, there's obviously the initial trauma or the initial going through something. But in the end, it is your choice of whether you're going to feed the trauma, feed the pain, or choose to be a survivor and a thriver. And that word choice applies to every living thing. We have a choice in how we're going to react and what we're going to do next, even if we don't have a choice of what happens to us. So it comes down again to a responsibility of self.
And being accountable for yourself. When
Absolutely.
Michael Jackson was wearing that white glove and a couple other things, my son wanted to do it. And I said, why? It has nothing to do with you. That's his signature. That is who he is. That's how people recognize him. I said, who is Ben Caldwell? What is about you that you want people to brand with you, to recognize who you are?
Yes.
I said, don't adopt somebody else's skin. That is not you. I said, figure out who you are. Find something that will make you as visible as what Michael Jackson has found for himself, and then be that person. So
you also don't know why somebody's doing something. He was doing it to cover up his impetigo, the discoloring of the skin. So that's the reason why he was doing it. It wasn't just I'm just going to wear one glove. So we've got to understand why people are doing things. And, for you to go and do it, well, what are you hiding? It's as you said, have your own signature.
Yes.
I mean, people are going to experiment, right?
In that, because kids are so easily influenced. And, of course, culture around him made him into a big retail thing where everybody was wearing one white glove on their hand.
And the white sock, yeah.
Yes. Yes. And all that other stuff. So it's important for you to understand you just don't take on somebody else's skin or somebody else's branding without understanding, A, what drove them to do it in the first place, but more important for you is that is not you. You do not have that particular persona. And so develop your own. And that's all I was really trying to get across. So what did he land up? He started wearing black pants and a white shirt, and then the next year he added black, white, and purple. And those were his three colors. He learned how to wash and dry them, and he learned how to iron the shirts because that's all he wore for 3 years in high school. And it drove
But everybody knew, right?
And I said, that's who he is. I don't have to wear it. I'm not identifying myself, but this is how he perceives himself and how he wants other people to perceive him, and he has that right. It is his choice.
Exactly. Yeah, and, for me it was the hippie chic, because I'm a 70s chick. So, I love the long flowing clothes and everything else, but with a little, style, a little class. And even today I'm still a little hippie chic, the freedom and the flow and the color and everything else. And people know that's me. If I went into a suit, they'll just go, no, Sara, we don't buy it, right? So you have to honor who you are and what your personality is, because that's how you set the table of how people are going to, come eat with you. Do they feel comfortable enough because you are representing your own skin? If you're trying to be something you think they want to be, then there's already a disconnection. By stepping into yourself in ownership, in pride, in love of self, then people are going to feel comfortable in your presence, no matter what you're wearing, because it's your skin, it's your choice, and it's who you are.
Absolutely. And this is what Sara's radio network is all about. It's discovering who you are, where you're going with who you are, how to be comfortable in your own skin, and then move forward. And there's so very few people these days who really are comfortable with their own skin, and they kind of look like they need a good scratching.
Well, again, they're living life by expectation, right?
Right.
They're not living life by by their own persona. They're living life by expectation, what everybody expects them to be. And that's the reason why we have so many lost souls. Yes. They're so busy trying to fit into everybody else's slot that they don't realize there's one all for themselves. And they may not like themselves, and that's because they haven't yet connected or switched themselves on because they've been living this lie. And, it's not their fault they've been living this lie. It was the way they were brought up with everybody else's demands of what they should be and not what people were nurturing them to truly become.
Absolutely. It's almost like they're all wolves wearing sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
Not to be seen.
Exactly.
Sara, please tell everybody where people can find you on the World Wide Web, all your contact information, and anything else you feel that they should know.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, the radio station is selfdiscoveryradio.com, so that's www or the HTTP, selfdiscovery.com. You can also email me at info@selfdiscoveryradio.com, info@selfdiscoveryradio.com. My personal site, where the discovery of self is saratroy.com, which is SARATROY.com. It will also come up as choosepositiveliving.com. Both names will take you to that. And if you need to get hold of me there, you can use the same email, info@selfdiscoveryradio.com. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions pertaining to the program that I offer, The Art of Positive Living and Discovery of Self. Or if you have any interest in wanting to be a host or a guest host, I have guest hosting here where people don't want to host all the time, but just like to do guest hosting spots. Or sponsorship, everything is here. But with 1,800 collective shows here, we have a beautiful library of wisdom that I'm sure would answer many of the things that you're looking for in life. And I had the privilege of interviewing you as well, Lillian, and you're going to be under the genre Their Story Matters, and you're airing on May 2nd. And your title of your show is called Passionate Radio, hosting with Lillian Caldwell. And I invite people to come and hear your story on my station. And it was an absolute delight to interview you as well.
Well, I enjoyed it. We need to have you come back. We can use a little self-discovery on Passionate World Radio Network. Folks, before we go away and stray, I have this to say by John Foster. It is wonderful what strength and boldness of purpose and energy will come from the feeling that we are in the way of duty. And before you go away, you can hear this interview all over again. It will be posted today at PassionateWorldRadioNetwork.com. That's https:// GooglePlus.com/PWR Network. Facebook.com/PWR Network. Twitter.com/@_Paths of Giants. And LinkedIn.com/Lillian Caldwell. I want to thank all of you for listening, and remember, please keep listening. Thank you.
Thank you.